You're listening to the Millionacres Podcast. Our mission at Millionacres is to educate and empower investors to make great decisions and achieve real estate investing success. We provide regular content and perspective for everyone, from those just starting out to seasoned pros with decades of experience. At Millionacres, we work every day to help you demystify real estate investing and build real wealth.
Hello, I'm Deidre Woollard, an editor at Millionacres, and thank you so much for tuning into the Millionacres Podcast. You've probably heard that we are in the midst of a remodeling boom right now when it comes to both homes and investment properties. And there are a few trends driving this. The first is that nesting impact of all of us being home for a year during quarantine. And the second is that the value of homes just keeps rising. We keep seeing new highs, and that always drives home improvement. So with me today are Howery and Ralph McLaughlin of Kukun. Ralph is the CEO and co-founder of Kukun, and Ralph is the chief economic advisor. Kukun is designed to be a resource for homeowners and anyone looking to improve a property. And what they do is they bring together a wide variety of data on home renovation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
One of the things I think everyone in real estate is talking about right now is how do we get more existing home inventory on the market? What are you guys seeing, and what do you think is necessary for that to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. Two things. One, existing owners need to sell their homes, and two, we need to build more new ones. Currently, we are in what I like to call, for lack of a better description, a death spiral of inventory. And what that means is, at the start of the pandemic, a lot of would-be sellers were really scared and freaked out, and those that didn't need to sell just decided, okay, I'm going to take my home off the market, not sell, and maybe wait. But when that happens, every person that decides not to sell actually disincentivizes someone else not to sell. And so they decide not to put their home on the market, and so on and so forth. It just spirals out of control. In fact, in the largest 100 markets now, we're down to under about 300,000 homes this week. And that's just the lowest on record. There are a couple of ways that we can potentially solve this problem, or that we can break free of it. One, again, is going to be build more new homes. That's ultimately the demand relief valve, so to speak, for those that want to buy houses. And two could be migration. Certainly one thing that's happened during this pandemic is people have been allowed to work from home, and or maybe there's been people that have been pushed or have decided to take early retirement, and they might sell their home and then move somewhere else, maybe where inventory is less tight. We haven't seen any major push on the latter, but we have started to see a lot of new home building, and that's important. A third thing that I didn't mention that I think we'll get to a little bit later is one substitute is actually remodeling. So if you want to buy a house and you can't find one that you would like to live in, and maybe you can't even find a new one in a location that you like, you'll just decide to make your existing home a new home, or a newish home, by adding on to it, adding a bed, adding a bath, expanding, remodeling, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I know in California, one of the things is that people are adding ADUs to get a little extra space too, just adding on a whole accessory dwelling unit now that that's legal there. So, but there are a lot of solutions. Certainly, it's been a great time for home builders. And that brings up another question I wanted to talk about, which is the aging of homes in America. I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't really talk about, but I know that homes are getting older. People are starting to see more problems, especially not necessarily the older, sort of historic kinds of homes, but the homes that were built in the 60s and 70s really seems to start to be having problems. Is that something that you're kind of focusing on or aware of too?
Yeah, we're certainly, keep an eye on that, obviously, because we're a company that's focused on remodeling, on data analytics around remodeling, and also home building. The fact of the matter is that there are only about 1 out of every 10 homes that are on the market are new homes. Most homes that are on the market and that exist are old homes. So every year that goes by, it's endemic to the housing market that the housing market is going to get older. Even if we were to build, say, 30 or 40%, of the existing housing market, we still would see eventually a housing stock that gets old. So that's not necessarily anything new. Certainly, we've built less homes of recent than we have in the past, and that's contributing to it. But it's also important because a lot of the existing homes, the aging homes, tend to be in areas, in already built out areas where demand, is high. And so, there's no, I guess there's no replace for space, so to speak. So if you have a unique spot in space, maybe near a lot of jobs that was built out in the 50s and 60s and 70s, even those homes are old, they're still in demand because there is that unique spot in space. And, further to, the conversation that we talked, that we had earlier, uh, you know, owners of those homes are very much incentivized to renovate them when they start to become out of disrepair because of that uniqueness. The alternative is to knock it down and, maybe build 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 homes. But in a lot of areas, especially entering suburbs, zoning hasn't caught up to allow homeowners to do that. So about their only choice is to renovate.
Well, I'm interested to see what happens next with zoning because I think that's something that was movement toward multifamily zoning was something that was happening kind of before the pandemic. We saw it in Minneapolis, and it seemed like that was going to start to be a big movement. And then, of course, COVID-19 happened, and we didn't think about that for a while. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that that starts coming up again. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Cocoon website because you have a renovation estimator, and I think that's going to be really valuable for our audience to learn a little bit more about for people that are looking to do flips or looking to buy and rehab and rent out properties. So, what's the most popular project that you're seeing right now, and has that changed since the pandemic?
By far, it's always been kitchens and bathrooms. That's always the most requested kind of project. We have our tool also at other places. They're used by banks for their customers, and we're seeing exactly the same behavior. Other projects that usually windows tend to be very often there. Then I think right after COVID, clearly an office and an in-law suite just jumped. I mean, that was like the one extra. It's similar to an ADU. That was pretty popular, and I've seen it also across all the different installations of our tool. And so every once in a while, you'll see some other project, but I would say garages tend to be also very popular. A lot of homes are built without garages, and you'll see a lot of additions of garages. The other thing that we see is that often when folks remodel a kitchen, they do a bit of an expansion. So one of the options on our tool is to determine whether you're trying to expand something or sort of add something. And you will see a lot of expansion inside the house, which means taking out walls. And so that's, of course, that's the open space is a trend, and that you will see a lot of those estimator efforts that we see there.
Interesting. So the open space trend, what's one of the things I wanted to ask your opinions on because I've been seeing so much discussion about whether or not the open floor plan is over. A lot of people saying they want to close off, the open kitchen used to be the thing. Now the open kitchen, people don't want that. They're starting to look for rooms just because everybody has had to, find a place to Zoom for the past year or so. Do you think this is a temporary shift, or do you think that the open floor plan might be over for a little while?
I think it'll be over. I think it's just a period. People are stuck at home, and a lot of folks. I know we ran a survey at one point, and we found a lot of folks set up their office in the kitchen. So I think they had to build some walls around it to kind of make it work. But I think that's a style that will go on. It'll be very hard to change in today's environment, and getting closer to nature. That is sort of part and parcel of our kind of modern sort of approach. I would not look at COVID's behavior as any indication of what the future is going to hold for design and for living style. You will work from home more often. So I think we will get to a point where you'll describe a house as 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, and 1 office rather than just 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I think that will happen over time. We're seeing folks add in those kind of structures, and it will become part and parcel of the home DNA. So I think I would not take COVID in any way as something that will change stylistic preferences, but it will change the way we view homes.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, and those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. Certainly, if you look at your existing home, you might say, okay, well, I could care less about this open floor plan now because I need an office, and so there might be a push amongst existing homeowners to renovate existing bedrooms or add on a library or a study or a nook or something like that. But if you think about the long term. ways that we use our homes. One of the real values that people were placing on open floor plans was a value to entertain. And that's something that we have not been able to do really over the last year. We haven't been able to entertain our family and friends. And the open floor plan really allows that. So I would be very surprised if that goes away, especially after we've all been cooped up and are under socialized these days. I wouldn't be surprised actually if that starts to become a major point, in the next year or two.
And we've seen a lot of pools. I think folks are entertaining in the pool area now, right? So that's another thing. Homes with pools have become in demand versus home without pools. Because I think in the past, homes with pools had a bit of a challenge because of the cost of repair and insurance and all that. Now they are very desirable because people want to entertain outside.
Interesting. Are you seeing also outdoor rooms, outdoor kitchens, things like that also?
Definitely outdoor kitchens. I don't know about outdoor rooms. I mean, I know that pools and outdoor kitchens are very popular. I think we've seen also a number of surveys on that. And I think even a lot of the folks who are working landscaping and hardscaping are quite busy now because that becomes your outside world now, right, during this period. But again, that's a trend for the time being. It will continue, but I don't think it will continue in the same pace.
I think that's true. I think that was a trend that was in motion before the pandemic. So I wanted to talk a little bit about renovations in general because this is a podcast for investors. And one of the things that we've noticed, we've seen it on the website a lot at Million Acres, is that it's so easy to over improve. And what can someone who's house flipping or someone who has a rental do to prevent that?
We can take a lesson from realtors when they stage a home. If it's an investment, we tend to sometimes not distinguish between our own homes and other people's homes. In general, you will see the ROI go sort of against the cost. In other words, the higher the finish, the more labor, and the more refined, the more sort of customized, the less ROI there is on that. So I think we take a lesson from the staging model and say basically you kind of build basic, good looking features that are modern, that are viewed as very in demand today, and you reduce your cost. And I think you're going to get a much better ROI on that one. That's why, if you look at our estimator, builder grade is the lower finish level. Right. And builders do that classically. They make it look very fancy, but they're actually going sort of on the low end in most of the material that they use.
Yeah, and to follow up on Raf's comment, yeah, I mean the two sort of opposite ends to think about. One is that the higher end, the more customized the feature, the less likely you're going to have a big market for that, and so you're definitely playing in a risky market there. And then the other end are sort of the things that everyone would value, especially in older homes, which would be new, what I would say, foundational components of the house. So not just the foundation, that's of course part of it, but the electrical, right? The plumbing, the roof, all the things that could go wrong, during a storm, right? Losing power, losing, water because your pipes freeze, having your house start to tilt one way because your foundation is starting to crumble, right? Those are all things that I think, most people, regardless of what their taste for color or finish value in a home is, a real solid, secure, up to date, structural components of a house. The bones.
A lot of the visual elements make a big difference, right? So a front door, a good curb appeal to go for very, very long way in terms of creating that home for people. So there is a fine line between the infrastructure of the house, which is what Ralph is going after, and also the kind of feel of a home. And that means sometimes very small projects that can really go very far. An example, I think a front door kind of refinish and a little bit of a curb appeal can really add a lot of value to a house.
Yeah, I've seen whole forums devoted to door color.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to sell it. Especially if you think you're going to put it on the market. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking about selling mostly for flippers.
All right. So I wanted to ask also about home insurance because I know that Kukun deals with that. And I feel like home insurance is something that when people are either renovating or, whatever they're doing to remodel, they don't really think about how insurance plays a role, whether or not they have contractors in the house or not. So let's homeowner know about their home insurance, especially if they're having contractors in and they're doing a major remodel like a kitchen or something like that?
Well, first of all, I think you have to consider yourself an insurance company, and the first thing you worry about is risk, right? And so anytime you expose your home to any sort of risk, the insurance company will get nervous. And so the one first thing an example, a pool is one of those renovations that if you do not inform your insurance company that you've done it, that introduces a lot of risk. And as a result, it could cause you a lot of pain with your insurance company eventually when they find out. The other piece that I see I think folks also forget is that sometimes when you modernize things, actually it may reduce your cost of insurance. When you modernize your electric, you modernize all your infrastructure, you create more fire resistant elements into your house, it actually could reduce it. So that's mostly the thing that I would say is that be careful and look at what you're doing. Is it increasing risk? Or is it lowering the risk? If it's lowering the risk, it's a great deal. Go for it. If it's increasing the risk, you've got to call the insurance and find out what that means to you and to your insurance policy.
If you do a major renovation, do you then need to change your insurance either before, during, or after? Or what does that process look like?
You need to let your insurance company know and ask them, tell them what you're doing. That will have an impact. And as I said, it could be a positive impact. It's not always a negative impact. As a matter of fact, your insurance premium is higher on an older home than a newer home. So it's not always a negative impact. Having said that, if you include any high risk items such as a pool, another one is a trampoline, actually, believe it or not. A trampoline can impact your insurance policy. Those are two high risks element that you should let your insurance know. It's going to change your cost, but you better find out right now versus when you have to claim something after the fact and then they find out that you violated your insurance. You violated your insurance policy.
Good point. Yeah, communication is definitely essential. Well, this is a great place to take a short break.
Like what you're hearing? Get more real estate investing news and advice from Millionacres on Instagram @Millionacres and on Twitter @Millionacres_co.
During our break today, we are excited to have Millionacres lead investment analyst Matt Argersinger here to speak briefly about one of our newest services, Real Estate Winners. Thank you for joining us, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
So what is Real Estate Winners and who is it for?
Well, I like to think of Real Estate Winners as our answer to Stock Advisor in the real estate market. It is a service that provides recommendations on publicly traded REIT real estate investment trusts and real estate companies. So it's a pretty big universe out there. There's over 200 REITs to choose from and probably dozens, if not hundreds, of real estate companies are in our universe. And we provide regular investment recommendations as well as commentary on the market, educational material. And it's really designed to get anyone who's interested in investing and learning about real estate started.
So is it geared toward new investors or is it more for seasoned pros?
I think Real Estate Winners can serve both. I think if you're a new investor, maybe you're just getting started with stocks and you want to learn more about how to add real estate to your portfolio, great place to start. If you're a seasoned investor and just thinking, okay, how can I diversify my portfolio, maybe reduce the volatility in my portfolio, maybe add some income to my portfolio, then I think Real Estate Winners is a great solution for that cohort as well.
Fantastic. What are the benefits of being a member of Real Estate Winners?
Number one benefit is day one when you join, you get our top 10 investment ideas at the moment. So really right from the beginning, you know what our 10 best ideas in the publicly traded real estate market are. And then going forward on a monthly basis, you'll get a new recommendation, sometimes more than one new recommendation, as well as regular content that we're coming out. We're covering our past recommendations, providing updates, and talking about the real estate market. So it's really the full package.
Perfect. So what do you need to get started?
Really all you need is a discount brokerage account. So if you're used to buying stocks, and you probably already have that. If you haven't bought stocks in the past, of course, just open a discount brokerage account. These days, you don't even have to pay commissions. It's fantastic. So it really couldn't be easier to get started investing with Real Estate Winners.
Sounds fantastic. So how can people sign up?
Sure. They can head over to real.fool.com. That's real.fool.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. I'm back with Howery and Ralph McLaughlin of Kukun, and we're talking about home renovations and real estate investing. Wanted to know what the building permit data is showing you about the pace of renovations. We're seeing housing starts and building permits still be it's still continuing to go up. But what about renovation permits?
Yeah, I mean, renovation is going up. I mean, on a year-over-year basis, we are looking at about, depending on the data that you're looking at and the type of project, about 20 to 30% above where we were last year. So it's becoming a major focus of the housing market. And again, that's partially because inventory is so low. And yes, new building is up, but maybe unsurprisingly, a lot of the new home sales are actually homes that haven't been constructed yet. It's when things get really tight, people start to look up river, for their water supply, and that's what's happening. So for those that have decided not to move, or maybe not move into a new house, or they can't find an existing one, they're absolutely looking to renovate. And it's not just of course, building permits that are up, which is the first sign, but all of the other indicators of materials sales are up. The Home Depot index, I think, is up. Lowe's is reporting a lot of increase in sales. So yes, all signs are that people are really trying to make their home something different than it was pre-pandemic. And again, from a wonky standpoint too, we are going to enter a phase. We're looking at year-over-year changes is going to be a little odd, right? We're now in March, and March last year was when the pandemic started to cause things to go haywire. So if you're a data analyst out there, or an economist, or even just a casual observer of the market, even beyond home renovations or new home sales, using year-over-year stuff is going to look a little weird over the next 3 to 4 months. We are continuing to see a very decent uptick in home renovations and new construction.
Very good point about the fact that the 2020 was just such an anomaly year. It's been the same thing for real estate investing in terms of REITs and real estate stocks. It's like you really can't compare the 2 years. It's just going to be kind of a little bit of a lost data year in some ways. So one thing with all of this renovation is it seems like to me there's just an incredible surge in demand for contractors. And I think it's kind of been a boom time for contractors. You talked about landscape architects earlier. I wanted to talk a little bit about hiring contractors and what people should look for. One of our team members bought a house recently, and he was doing some renovations, and he got this really wide variety of quotes, and was it happens. And I think when that happens, a lot of people don't know what to do. What's your advice on that?
As we all know, this industry has no standards, right? It's not like you can receive a quote in a standard format and compare others. So as a result, there's a lot of interpretation and a lot of details that tend to remain opaque. I think what you can do at this stage is, one is you've got to understand what the real costs are, and I think that's why we built the estimator. Let's just give it as a more of a budget exercise rather than an actual quote, but that's your starting point. The second thing is history is everything. The contractor history, and how many years in business, any complaints that they've been about them. The third thing that you can ask, which is having a serious conversation, which is I want to see a project plan with cost of labor and material separated, so that I can really figure out what the cost of that material is. And you'll be surprised when you start to ask everyone to give you that project plan with that same level of detail, everything will come a little bit clear. The other piece is that the demand for contractors is not new. This just became worse. I mean, it's been like this for a long, long time. It's been at least 2 to 3 years where contractors are always be where I live. I think if I need to do something in my house, significant at least, I need to wait for another year. It's not that easy to get somebody. So first thing is to figure out your budget, figure out the material, figure out also your taste up front, right? So if you're going to be into the expensive hardwood, and he's going to budget for you on a very kind of average hardwood, right? And then you're going to be surprised at the end. So figure out your material that you want up front. Try to kind of price it in the market. Get a project plan that is detailed at the task level where labor and material is separated, and then compare the market prices for at least material, and then you'll get a lot of clarity and you can ask all the hard questions. That would be my personal advice, and I've done that multiple times.
There's been an old I guess saying in the construction bidding world that you'd want to not take the cheapest and don't take the most expensive either, because there may be very good reasons why something is extremely cheap and good reasons why something is very expensive, and usually somewhere in the middle, maybe a little low, middle low is going to be a decent bid. And of course, if there are others that you can get to provide references or examples of work, and actually, even better yet, and it's hard these days, but if you can see the work that they've done and actually looked at the craftsmanship, that could also give you idea as to whether or not you're getting what you're paid for, whether you're getting a good deal, or not getting what you paid for.
I'll add also on our website, there's I find a contractor feature where we show you the history of every contractor. There are at least, I think, 800,000 of them on our website. So it's easy to go in and just type in your address and look at the contractors that work in your neighborhood, find out which homes they worked at. And that's so easy to find out if they worked with your neighbor, to knock on your neighbor's door and ask, what did you think? And how was his pricing? What did you have as an experience? You will also see on the website a full sentiment analysis of their reviews, what people think about them, every home they worked at, if they're licensed, if there's anything negative at the Better Business Bureau, you will see that too. So I think it's a good source for independent information that allows you to kind of think a little more about how you hire the right contractor. I would try it as just a fact-finding thing before you hire any guy.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think getting multiple quotes is really important, which I know is hard right now with so many contractors vying for work. That actually makes me want to ask you, do you feel like the issue with contractors and the need to try to find contractors, is that related to the same problem that we're seeing in construction where the age of the construction worker is going up? Do you feel like there's going to be a skills deficit there going forward?
Yeah, I mean, even before the pandemic, home builders have been blaming labor supply as one of the problems that they faced. And in addition to that, we now have materials supply issues. But certainly, there are those that have worked in home building that have seen an increase in demand on the renovation side, and maybe have taken their skills over to renovation rather than home building. And so, there's very much an interrelated relationship between labor supply in new construction and even labor supply in home renovation. And when demand goes up and demand for both of those things goes up, it is going to be increasingly challenging and difficult and perhaps frustrating for those that are looking to renovate their home or even buy a new one to get their home built in time or get their home renovated in a decent time frame. So absolutely, it's hard to ramp up skilled labor when it comes to remodeling. For example, in the community I live in, it's kind of a small rural town in California. It's a few thousand homes there. But I talked to someone to potentially get my driveway repaved, and I talked to my neighbor who had his done, and I said, "How long did it take you to, get that?" I was 9 months on that list. So it was nine months to get his driveway redone. So I said, if you want it done, sooner than that, you may be out of luck.
Yeah, there's another potential phenomena we did see from the permit a while ago. We looked at about a year ago, and what we found is there are fewer people coming into the workforce. Younger folks are not choosing to be contractors, and as folks retire, so there's a bit of an imbalance of the new workforce coming in and the one that's leaving. I also think the sort of the marketing of the contractors, the tools that are out there, the house, the home advisor has created a market for those that know how to market themselves, and those that don't, and there are many of them, sort of got lost in between, and so they're also not as accessible to be found. And so the network is really key. But I think we're going to see some more of that behavior because the profession hasn't necessarily adopted the internet well yet. And so the younger folks who have grown up with computers just don't find it to be exciting anymore.
Well, you brought up an interesting point with the internet too, because one of the things that I hear about a lot is people going on YouTube and trying to figure out how to do something. There's YouTube tutorials for just about every home improvement you'd ever want to do. And there are a lot of people I think who see one of those and think, "Oh, I can do it." So do you think that that's a growing issue? And do you think that, I mean, the old rule is that most DIYers, you shouldn't do plumbing or electrical. Do you still feel like that should be the rule?
Yes. I would. Yes, if you don't like to be burned, that's for sure. That's like one of the. I think this is the one area you need a specialist. Don't mess with it.
Yeah,
It's too catastrophic if you make a mistake.
exactly. I mean, it's kind of a question when you ask yourself when it comes to electrical and plumbing. And unless you're an expert, there's two questions you got to ask yourself: do you like shock, and do you like shit? Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're eventually going to come across one or both of those. Hopefully, not at the same time. But it's a real possibility. Now, of course, there might be things like electrical plates, outlet plates that can be replaced. That's generally pretty easy. If you have a small leaky faucet where you just need to replace a gasket or washer, okay. But if you're talking about rewiring your house, or if you're talking about redoing a sewer line, I mean, unless you really, really know what you're doing, or you have someone there to guide you, you could end up in a world of pain, or a world of stink.
So true. My stepfather was an electrician.
I have friends that will hire an unlicensed contractor, but will never hire an unlicensed electrician. It's just like I'm not making that mistake. So even a lot of folks still recognize that, but I wouldn't mess with it.
Yeah, very good point. Let's talk a little bit about loans for renovations, because I think that's something that obviously people want to renovate, so they're thinking about maybe getting a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, or or other types of loans. What are you seeing on the loan front right now, and what do you think that both homeowners and real estate investors should know about renovation loans?
I mean, there are three types of loans available generally. Two of them are the ones that we look at, and those are the home equity type of loans, potentially a refinance also, and the personal loans. Um, Personal loans tend to do well for small projects that you need to do fast, because the closing of a personal loan happens very quickly. It is a higher interest rate, but since that most home renovators are homeowners, they tend to qualify for a better rate with getting a HELOC. The only problem with a HELOC, two things. Right now, the banks have tightened up that kind of credit box, and so they're not giving many of them. The other one is time. It does take a good 5 weeks to close a home equity loan. And so what we're seeing, especially on our website, we're seeing folks they're basically looking for a better rate, and the only offer is a HELOC, and the banks are not giving them as readily as they used to. We're starting to see banks, with some of our partner banks, we're seeing a little more softening of that now. But in general, I think the HELOC is your already finance. It depends on the size of your project, is your best bet. Personal loan allows you for a bridge potentially. You can get a personal to start early and then refinance and do your HELOC and then pay that back. But that's what I've seen people do, and I think it's the right way at this time.
Beyond what the right product is for you, and that's a very important consideration. Because if you take out, say, a lump sum home equity loan, you're paying that interest right away. Whereas a HELOC, you're only paying interest when you use it. And then there are very important considerations that Raph mentioned between, which is going to be the best for your circumstance. Even beyond that, did analysis last year looking at Freddie Mac loan originations that have detailed information on borrowers, credit score, LTV, DTI, who the lender was. And one of the biggest things that we found in that analysis is that there is over an 80 basis point spread just across lenders. So that's controlling for credit score, controlling for LTV, controlling for DTI, controlling for the type of the house, controlling for whether it's a refi or a purchase. So what that means is it actually pays to shop around. And if you're looking to do something very quickly, it's about the best way you can get the lowest rate out there. It's very hard to move your credit score in a short time, right? It's very hard to say come up with more loan to value in your house, or to lower your DTI. Those things are very tough to do in the short run. But what's easy is to shop around, and that's exactly what our analysis found.
I think that's a really important point. I think it's the same thing. I've noticed that too when people are are buying a home, they will tend to spend a lot of time looking at a lot of different homes. They will not take the same process when they're looking for their mortgage. And one of the things we've tried to explain on Million Acres is that is very important. That is a very, very important step. The house hunting is the fun part you get to do after you've done the part about looking around and trying to find the best mortgage. And I think that's true with home renovation. The same sort of thing happens where you get the anticipation of the remodel and the excitement of choosing tile and choosing cabinetry. It's a lot more fun to think about that kind of like HTTV kind of candy than it is to think about interest rates and closing costs and the other considerations that might come up if you're getting a loan. Wanted to know what other features that you're seeing in terms of demand for green features, sustainability. I mean, obviously, like ESG investing is very popular now. People are concerned more about the environment. Are you seeing that remodeling is taking on that? Is there a concern about sustainable features and also about the construction waste involved?
Yeah, so there are things, basically, a way to think about this is uh, things that are going to reduce your operational cost are going to have immediate value, right? So, say if you were to add a solar system, yeah, that's going to have cost. But if that completely eliminates, your bill, your electricity bill, that's going to be capitalized into the home value. If you have, say, a gray water system that is, immediately going to reduce your water bill, that's going to be recognized by home buyers. I think increasingly we're also seeing some premium, some demand for those things that go above and beyond what they actually save you. In particular, if we're talking about resilience and the ability to um, be resilient through, say, a disaster. So for example, in many places, we are seeing times when when the power gets shut off, right? Not just here in California. Texas has gone through that. I know many places on the East Coast during storms and hurricanes or whatnot. And so many of these systems that will cut down on your, say, electric bill or your reliance on municipal water also are going to allow you to be resilient through those sorts of events. And especially when we're in a highly connected world where we do require electricity, say, to have this sort of conversation or to have meetings with folks at work, being able to keep the lights on, be able to keep the internet running, being able to stay in your house with water is, I think, increasingly adding value to a house above and beyond the cost savings. It's like a convenience that those things add. And I still think it's a little bit early to be able to tease out and pinpoint exactly what that is, separating it from the immediate cost savings. But I think for those of us that have lived in areas that are susceptible to those sorts of disruptions, we do see these things. For example, I got a solar system put in just several months ago, and there's already been 3 times where the power has gone out, and I have been able to continue with my work and keep up my productivity and stay connected, and that is worth something. Whether or not that's going to be more of a premium, hold steady or drop, I think remains to be seen about where we choose to live and work. That is still playing out, but I think it's important to recognize those two things, and we've gone from just the cost savings capitalized in the home value to also the convenience.
Excellent. So, one question I also wanted to ask about was estimating the cost of things going forward. Lumber prices have been going up, a lot this year. I know usually they tend to peak in May, or that's usually the height. But what are you thinking about lumber prices, and also are you still seeing supply chain disruption when it comes to getting materials?
The 2 things to think about. One is that yes, we do have a lumber shortage. Lumber prices are high. Some of that, was because we have tariffs in place with foreign lumber, and that certainly isn't helping the supply chain and can make it difficult for home builders not only to sell their homes at what they thought they were going to sell them for and recoup their costs, but also finish in a timely manner. If home builders are even if they were to be able to stomach the cost of an increased price of lumber, you still have to wait for it to get to you, right? It can be hard for it to arrive, and that can slow down completion and slow down construction. But I think, ultimately, if these things persist, it's really the shocks that can be disruptive. High lumber prices on their own don't necessarily mean that homes have to be more expensive. The way home builders and the way developers work is everything comes out of the value of the land. So, if your price of lumber, if your price of labor in the long run go up, it just means you pay less for the land that you're going to develop on. And so it's the landowners that ultimately take the hit. But what happens in the short run is that there are builders and developers that are already planned to build and planned to develop and already paid for that land. And then when you get a spike, that's what can cause disruptions, right? That can lead to problems in the short run with not only completing but also being able to recoup the cost of construction. I would anticipate that we do have a new administration. The new administration may rethink some of the tariffs we have in place with lumber. I think the bigger issue over the long run, like we talked about earlier, is going to be skilled labor. We are at a point where our replacement cost from a birth rate perspective is starting to drop below replacement level, starting to look a little bit more like Europe and Japan. And so over the next 10 to 20 years, one of the only ways we're really going to grow not just our population, but also grow the supply of, say, skilled labor is likely to be through immigration. And I don't say this because I'm trying to make a political point. I'm saying that as a matter of fact, as an economist that also tends to look at demographics, right? So if we aren't sort of naturally replacing our population from birth rates above replacement rates, about the only other way to do that is through immigration. But the good news is, at least for myself, that's a political discussion, not an economic one. So I can kind of bow out and let those that deal with politics focus on it.
Just wanted to know from you, Raf, what are the best ways that house flippers and rental property investors can use Kukun in their businesses?
Simplistically speaking, I think the cost estimator is like the beginning of everything. I think that's a good starting point. That's a budgeting exercise. So I would use it as a budgeting exercise to figure out what your base cost is going to be. So that's the first one. I think also when you had mentioned about finding a contractor, I think that's a really good source because it's a neutral source. It's all based on our data. It's not there's no promotion there. And I think there's a lot of history. That's another one. I think we're coming up with two other ideas. I'll let maybe Ralph talk about them. Two algorithms that I think are going to forecast how homes will do in the future in certain areas. And we have another tool that's going to come out in about a month. But maybe quickly, Ralph, if that's okay with you, maybe just address some of those analytics that we're making available to flippers soon.
Sure. Really, three things that we're working on. One is being able to incorporate building permit activity, both residential and construction, into home price forecasting. So, we do incorporate a lot of, the important things that go into home forecasting, past home price behavior, also forecast of economic activity. But also, when you see, say, a new permit pulled for an office building or a new permit pulled for a cafe or what have you, that often signifies that there is likely to be employment growth or there's growing demand. So incorporating that into our home price forecast, we think gives us an edge and increases our accuracy about what's going to happen over the next 1, 2 to 3 years. The second and third things that we're really working hard on and really breaking through, especially over the last several months, is improving the accuracy of an AVM. So one of the ways that flippers tend to make money is not just they sell at a premium, but they also can buy at a discount. And sometimes it can be hard, to figure out what that discount is based on the condition of a home. And so one of the things that we're doing is actually pulling in permit information to be able to get a good idea as to what the actual condition of the house is in. So if you have a 40-year-old house, is everything, 40 years old, or maybe some things are a little bit younger, maybe some things have been renovated. And that can not only make our AVM more accurate, but what can do is also give flippers an idea as to what's the best combination of projects to take on from a return on investment perspective. And so those are the real, the big three that we're working on now and that we're really, on the cusp. We've broke through on several of those and really just working on scaling up now. So very excited to get the full suite available to the investment community to help them, with their projects.
Interesting. And so when will that be available approximately?
We're on the cusp now of being able to have our forecast available to to anyone that wants it. We're probably no more than a few months out. In fact, we've got some good beta AVM products and ROI products now. Actually, we have an ROI available for many cities. We're going to improve upon that. So timeline maybe 2 to 3 months before we're really starting to roll out to many of the large markets in the country.
And I would encourage your listeners to check out the website by April to start to see some of that progress. They'll start to see all that, what's available, and we'll roll it out in time. And if they register, they'll start to get, regular news on what's available, what's not available. So that's another way to kind of keep up with what's going on with us.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for your time today. And just a reminder for our listeners, the website is mykukun.com. So that's MY and KUKUN. Stay well and stay invested.
Thank you for tuning in to the Millionacres Podcast. I hope you liked today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing through your favorite podcast provider. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a line at help@millionacres.com. Stay well and stay invested. People on this program may have an interest in the deals, offerings, or services they discuss that Millionacres or the Motley Fool may have a formal recommendation for or against. Always consult a certified tax professional before acting on tax advice, and do not buy or sell assets based solely on what you hear.